Hi, Bruisers. I wish we could be doing this in person. I got to do this a couple years ago with my older daughter, Kerrigan, but I'm excited to share some with you guys, and my daughter, Grayson, is in your class. So Miss Sim sent me some questions that you guys were interested in, and she kind of divided them into sections. So the first ones, I guess, are kind of related to Latin, so I just wanted to address those in this video. One of them was, what was your senior prank? And honestly, I don't remember a lot of it. I know, and this may have been the class behind me, I know at one point they did things like steal the silverware out of the cafeteria, and they only left knives for the girls to use. I know at one point there was one where they took string and ran it through all the locker doors in the middle school hallway, so it was hard for the girls to get them, and they switched all the backpacks around. And I remember one year they had something where they pretended to arrest, I think it was either our headmaster, Mr. Tucker, or the head of the upper school, Miss Pierce, so that was pretty funny. There was a question about how we got our class rings, so of course we got them when we were juniors, and ours were delivered. Somebody in our class, her dad, I think, was a pilot, and he flew a helicopter to the lower field, and that's how they delivered ours. And there's a question about the crest that we have, the GPS crest, and I honestly do not know the story behind that, but I've always loved that emblem, and my dad actually took that emblem and made a wooden clock for me that I still have. So it's pretty cool. I like the crest, but I'm not 100% sure how that came about. I do know if you look at the rings in the outside the theater, there's a lot of old rings, and it does go back a long ways, so that's pretty neat. Okay, so this is installment 2. This looks like some questions that maybe were relating to English and intertwining that with your global cultures. It says, what are some of the relationships you have with teachers and students at GPS? So I definitely have friendships from GPS that continue to this day. One of my best friends, my kids actually call her Aunt Kim. She's, we're still really good friends. We've been friends all since GPS days. She was in my wedding, and actually most of the girls in my wedding were my friends from GPS. And it's interesting, I definitely was closer to a lot of girls then, and it's just most of us have kind of moved to different places. One of my better friends lives in California, so it's hard to see her as much as I would like, but I'm also really close to a lot of the teachers I had. And I know you guys don't have him yet, but like Mr. Sanders, he's a chemistry teacher at GPS, and I actually used to babysit his kids. So he's definitely a really good friend, and I still send him a Christmas card every year. And Linda Mines was a history teacher there for a long time, and still send her a Christmas card. And actually, her grandkids go to school with my son Keaton at St. Peter, so that's kind of neat. But definitely the relationships that you build with your friends and the teachers there are ones that you're going to carry throughout your life. It's just like family, and they're there for you. My parents got divorced when I was in high school, and I had a lot of extra moms that were my teachers that really got me through the hard times of dealing with that, and just, I'll never forget that. And I did not have any siblings that went to GPS. I was actually an only child. I think the GPS being an all-girls school, it kind of stemmed from the fact that Macaulay had started, and I think the 3 founders were looking for something just for girls. And it just to this day, it's a great school. It empowers girls. It teaches them to be leaders. The girls get to ask all the questions. And I think it was really amazing of them back in 1906 to have that idea and the willpower to follow through with that and create a school that has been there for hundreds of girls over the years, and has meant so much to us and our education. And I think just the idea of the brother school, it's nice to have Macaulay because we can kind of do stuff with them, hang out on the weekends, go to the football games. But it still allows us that single-sex education, which allows us to just focus on learning and developing and finding out who we are without the influence of having boys there to be nervous about, or, oh, does this boy like me or whatever. We just get to focus on learning without those interruptions, although we have that, as an extra thing to hang out with them and spend time with them also. Okay, so there were some questions that kind of looks like they're coming specifically from the global cultures class and some things that y'all were interested in. One of those was, it says, what are some opportunities you have that helped you in your career? I guess the biggest thing for me is just at GPS, it's a hard school. I mean, academically, it was really intense for me. I mean, I took a lot of honors and AP classes, but I learned so much about being organized and time management and perseverance, and I think that definitely followed me to college, and I honestly would say probably the first year of college really wasn't that hard, just because I had been challenged so much at GPS and I had learned those skills, but I definitely took those with me. I didn't go to grad school to be a pharmacist until a little bit later, but when I started, I actually had Kerrigan, who is now an 8th grader. She was about to be 4 years old. Grayson, which is your classmate, she was about to turn 2. And then I ended up having my son Keaton during pharmacy school. So I basically went through 4 years of graduate school with 3 young children, and I definitely think that those skills that I picked up and utilized while I was at GPS, were key to me being able to survive that, because it was very intense. It required a lot of dedication and organization to get through it, and I know that GPS helped me just in my foundation of those things to get through that. So there's a question about some obstacles that blocked you from your path at GPS. I don't know that I would say there was a lot. I mean, probably the only thing I can think of is religion is a big thing for me. I mean, it was always really important to me just to kind of stand my ground, I guess, about certain things, and so sometimes I felt like maybe, not like an outsider, but sometimes I felt like that might have hindered me in certain ways. And then I think there was a question about like more or less diversity at GPS. I honestly feel like it's about the same. I don't think it has changed a whole lot. Maybe a little more diversity now. I think the other thing for me, like, too, just kind of thinking about like obstacles, I did not come from a family with a lot of money, and I think for some people that's definitely an obstacle, but I always felt really comfortable. I mean, I always felt like I had a lot of friends, and a lot of friends, and they didn't care about that. And I just always felt confident in who I was and in myself and in the gifts and talents that I had, I didn't feel like I was less of a person because of that. Sometimes I think that's hard with some people there, just because there's definitely families there that have a lot of money, financially, and so it can kind of set things and make things harder for some people. I really do like, though, I think as far as when you think of diversity, I don't always just think like, about cultures like, Black students or Hispanic students or Asian students. I mean, I think there's a lot of diversity in like financial situations in students. I mean, they come from all over. I mean, we've got students that come from, all these different schools. And so I think in that respect, it's a good kind of melting pot. Especially when you look at like the statistics for 6th grade. I mean, I think there was like 27 kids that came. They were the only kid from their school. So it definitely kind of adds to the diversity in that respect. This is the last one. So Ms. Sims had also sent a just kind of bunch of questions with the Zoom links for the meetings tomorrow. So there was a couple questions in there that really weren't in the other groupings that she sent me that I wanted to talk about. So the uniforms, we definitely had the bright colored dresses. I think a lot more people had on like handmade back then. So that was it's kind of interesting now to see the ones that are bought, the ones that are made, just kind of the differences in that. We actually started having the winter uniforms when I was a student there. I want to say maybe when I was in 9th or 10th grade. So it's kind of interesting because at that time we could wear, there was a ton of colors, like a light green, kind of a light burgundy, pink, blue, yellow, peach, and then we could wear like striped versions of that too. So sometimes when I've been in the Golden Buckle, I've actually seen some of those older shirts that we were allowed to wear. So I think over time, as the school got used to those uniforms, they kind of fine-tuned the colors a little bit. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see. We had to wear regular shoes. The only time you could wear like sneakers was if you had an ankle or foot injury. So there was definitely no Tevas, no Chacos, and a lot of times we wore like the Bass Bucks, like the suede shoes, or like the black and white, I think they're called saddle Oxfords or something, or like penny loafers was really common. So that's interesting too, that's really different. And like with the May Day dresses, kind of along with that, like all the girls would buy like shoes that you would dye the color of your dress. I mean, there was no like wedge shoes or sandals or flip-flop kind of thing. I mean, it was very specific what you had to wear. And as far as the buildings, so the middle school building was not there. I started GPS in 7th grade. That was the first grade you could go there. So the middle school building actually used to be a parking lot. So that's kind of weird. When you go into the I don't know what it's called now. It's the when you go across the patio in that first door, it's kind of an extension off the middle school building. Like where the naiads are, that was when you went down into the bottom, that was the 7th grade hall, and then the top of that was the 8th grade hall, and that was actually like the 8th grade hall was where all the math classes were. And we used to have foreign language down in the like the building where the dance studio is. It was actually kind of, I don't know if we call it the dungeon, but that sounds right. But it was down in that hallway down there when you went down the steps from where the dance studio was. Now the senior lounge, that's the same. It was, the seniors, we would decorate it and kind of do a theme every year in there. So that's kind of the same. Where Coach Dillard's room is, which last year was the choir room, that actually used to be our study hall room. So that's kind of a different thing. So that's interesting, just how things have kind of changed over the years. And of course, we did not have the Ben at that time. We used to have a lot of our music classes in the Evans Center, so that's kind of a different thing. So there's a question on here, some of the things that you achieved while you're at GPS. Academically, I did pretty well there, so I was in like Beta Club and National Honor Society. But honestly, like one of my favorite traditions at GPS, and I would honestly say it was probably the biggest honor for me the entire time I was there, was being inducted into cum laude. From the time I was in 7th grade and I saw that take place in chapel that year, like it was just like a dream for me to be a part of that. And I just always tried to work as hard as I could academically. And I'll never forget, they actually sent us a letter in the mail to let us know that we had been chosen to be part of it. And I remember standing at the mailbox crying, because it just meant so much to me to achieve that and to be honored like that. And the teacher that spoke for me was Marla Neal. She was my Latin teacher at GPS, and she's actually passed away a little over a year ago. And so that for me just it's just a great memory of a teacher that was super close to me. She was one of my extra moms, and so I think that was fun. And as far as traditions, I think May Day is by far one of my favorite things at GPS. I mean, it's just to see the changes over the years, but yet so many things that are the same. It's just fun to see the themes every year. I love how the 6th grade does a dance now, kind of beforehand. And there's one tradition that I love at GPS that they don't do anymore. It was called Robin Hood Week. We usually did it, I think it was like the 1st of November. But like every day, each class, like they would set up tables, they would sell all kinds of different food things. Like girls would make stuff that they would sell, and all week girls would just bring extra money, and sometimes they would get stuff they could set up before and after school. But we raised a ton of money for charities, and I think that was just an amazing week, and we just had so much fun and being a part of it. And that's one thing I wish that would come back. But GPS has a lot of great traditions now that we didn't, like the black, blue, and white teams in the middle school. I think that's fun. I've enjoyed seeing that with Kerrigan and Grayson, something that we didn't get to do. But definitely, I think one thing that will always stand the test of time with GPS for me and with my daughters is just the idea of sisterhood. And I love that my girls are there. I love taking them to school every morning and just getting to share with them and talk to them about teachers that maybe I had, or just how things were different when I was there, or how they were the same. it's just a bond that you'll never forget. And I love, like, this is just a really cool example, and I'll end on this. I had a hip surgery last year, and the girl that was my nurse in pre-op, she had a GPS ring on, and it was just so cool for me because I looked at that and I was like, thank you, God, for giving me that little thing for me to see that and to know, like, hey, I've got a GPS girl taking care of me, and I knew I was in good hands, and it just assured me that it was going to be a good thing and it was going to work out. And I look forward to seeing you girls and how GPS, how you write your story there, and you're a future bruiser. So good luck on your project, and I'm glad I got to be a part of it.